Please welcome the President of American Airlines, Robert Isom, and the CEO of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Sean Donohue, in conversation with CNBC airline reporter Leslie Josephs.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you or morning, I guess, where you guys are still. So thanks for joining us. Again, Sean Donohue, CEO of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, and Robert Isom, President of American Airlines. Let's just get right to it. I mean, we're right before Thanksgiving, usually a really busy time of year for you guys and for other airlines and other airports, of course. We have the CDC coming out and saying today, recommending against Thanksgiving travel. What are your thoughts on that, and how are you managing recommendations coming from high-level health officials against that?
Hey, Leslie, it's Robert. Thanks for the question. Hey, look, we really encourage everybody to take precautions. Make sure you're wearing masks. Follow CDC guidelines. And look, if you're going to travel, what we're doing at American, and I know that with Sean as well, we're trying to make the experience as safe as possible. So you name it, from coming into the airport and having a touchless experience at the kiosks, all the way to getting on the aircraft and having super clean facilities, and getting on an aircraft that's been disinfected and deep cleaned, and then ultimately with the capabilities of the aircraft that we fly, the youngest fleet in the industry, we have great air filtration systems to create, I think, the safest environment possible. So look, people are going to travel. They have needs to travel, and we're going to make sure that they get there safely.
Okay. And Robert, Sean, do you have any thoughts on that?
I would agree with Robert, Leslie. It's a personal choice right now, and as Robert said, everybody needs to follow the CDC guidelines. The most important thing in our view is wearing the masks, and we mandate it at DFW. I know American mandates it on the aircraft. And as long as there are people who are willing to travel now, we are going to take good care of them. We're going to make sure it's as safe and healthy an experience as it can be. And I know it's the same for American Airlines as well.
Is there any concern from both of you, either of you, about the airline or aviation industry's sort of responsibility or role in potentially spreading this virus? I mean, we know that there's been research about how it's very safe on board, and how airlines like American and others are taking precautions and having these touchless experiences at the airport and sort of keeping travelers safe on their journey. Is there any sort of feeling of responsibility or concern, and how do you balance that with running a business, because you obviously need revenue now?
Well, Leslie, again, we have great concern for our team and our customers alike. And look, what we've been able to show as we've safely transported people throughout the pandemic is that we can provide an environment that is as safe as possible. Some of the best indications of that are just taking a look at the statistics of people traveling, the number of cases of possible transmission on planes, that number less than 50, with over 1 billion traveled, and we follow up on issues and work with all government officials on that. And then second, I would say is again, with Americans' clean commitment, we've put in a multi-layered approach to make sure that the environment is as safe as possible. And again, whether it's touchless sanitization, ensuring masks are being worn, the safe environment on the aircraft in terms of aircraft, the aircraft HEPA filters and changing out air, really 20 times an hour on an aircraft. We do as best a job as we can. And I tell you this, one of the things that is noteworthy is that we have a large team of people that work in urban areas where infection rates are high. American Airlines has 100,000 team members. American Airlines as a whole has current infection rates that are less than the country as a whole, despite being in urban areas. And our customer-facing team members, our flight attendants and our agents, actually have lower infection rates than the company as a whole. So look, what I want to say is that we can provide as safe an environment as possible. People that do need to travel, you can come to American Airlines and certainly have a safe experience.
Okay, and some of your competitors, Southwest Airlines and Airlines today, started talking about deceleration in bookings that they're starting to see. I think United, actually in a filing today, was talking about an increase in cancellations. Are you seeing that correspond with the increase in COVID cases in the U.S. and elsewhere?
Well, Leslie, certainly with the increase in infection rates really throughout the country, we've seen a dampening of demand. It's really too soon to tell how deep and how long that there may be a depressed environment, but we've seen some weakening of bookings. Yes.
Okay. And this week there was an announcement. One World, you and British Airways are going to be working in several airports in the U.S. to do this pre-flight COVID testing for flights back to London Heathrow. Could you talk a little bit about that, and do you see that expanding? And maybe Sean, if you want to talk a little bit about COVID testing within DFW, do you see that growing as well?
Well, I'll start, but
Okay.
I definitely want to make sure that Sean gets to weigh in here. The One World announcement, I think, is good news. It's a test. It's a test on a test. It's a multi-layered approach, one that will involve a test pre-departure, another test upon arrival, and another test a few days after you enter into the UK. It's all designed to gather data and ultimately to ensure that customers, once they enter the UK, are doing so in a non-infected way. And the fortunate thing about that is that we've got some experience.
Right. And we've been working with American at DFW and their healthcare provider, testing customers going to Hawaii for about a month. And as of last week, the good news is approximately 50 to 60 customers are getting tested every day. And in the first 3 to 4 weeks, only 2 customers tested positive. And to me, that's a signal that the customers are also taking on a responsibility. And, Leslie, you talked about airports and airlines, and certainly from an airport perspective, we absolutely take on that responsibility. But our airport is 40% less crowded than it was last year. We are literally spending millions of dollars more than what we planned in terms of sanitization and cleaning. And as Robert said, technology is a huge enabler right now with touchless experiences. We started a year ago biometrically boarding every international flight out of DFW. And again, working with American, we're hoping to continue to use biometrics because we think that is an opportunity moving forward in terms of the touchless experience through the airport.
Is there anything planned on that now? I've seen Spirit and Delta looking at that. Does American or DFW have anything additional to expand that biometric boarding? Do you think we'll have touchless, even security screenings at some point?
Oh, we're definitely working with government entities to be able to see how far we can take things, not just from the security checkpoint, but potentially to be able to use biometrics throughout the journey, whether that's on boarding or access to our lounges. It's something that is really exciting, and I know other airlines are making progress here, but ultimately I think it benefits the experience overall. And I just want to touch back on the testing protocols. I've personally gone out and used a number of the different means of testing, and the Let's Get Checked at home PCR test, I can tell you is super, simple and easy, for folks that want to try it. You pick the time, 72, 48, even longer, prior to flight, hours prior to flight. You just simply go into the Let's Get Checked website that you can hit off of AA.com. You order your test. It's there the next day. You take the test. You send it back. You have your results right away. Super convenient. So I am encouraged by diagnostics and testing that are coming fast and furious. And layer on with that, therapeutics, and then ultimately the good news on vaccine that we've heard about lately. I know we've got a tough patch to make our way through here, but on the horizon, from a technology perspective, and then certainly from a care perspective, things are moving fast.
How do you see that evolving? Do you think that getting a COVID test before flying is like going to be the new get your traveler's checks? Like, what does it look like over the next year? Because the vaccine is not going to be available for everyone for a long time. Do you see this being part of kind of like the pre-flight process, even domestically?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. And again, I don't profess to have a great crystal ball here. Our view from a DFW airport perspective on the testing is twofold. To provide an opportunity for customers to voluntarily test in the terminal if that's what they would like to do, and we're looking at that, as well as future opportunities if we can get some agreement on protocols for testing with other countries and other governments. Where I see testing providing the greatest opportunity and value is on international flights. And domestic, in our opinion, is going to recover much faster than international. And what can we do as an industry to accelerate the return of international? And I believe the testing would be an important element of that.
Do you see the role of health testing or any sort of medical facilities being a permanent fixture at DFW and maybe other airports?
Well, that's a good question. We actually opened up a health kind of 24-hour type operation about 2 years ago. And unfortunately, there was not enough customer demand, and the vendor wound up stopping the program. But to your point, Leslie, I think in the future, the opportunity for customers to avail themselves, as I said before, voluntarily sometimes, is just a reassurance. And anything we can do to continue to provide that confidence in the travel through the airport and through the entire journey is obviously something we're open to.
Okay, and I mean, you bring up something that could be in the airport. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I mean, revenue, of course, the airport is falling. Your aviation revenue, retail, parking. Can you give us a snapshot of DFW? I mean, such a busy airport last year, and how you're doing this year, and what you plan to do to try to make up for that shortfall in 2021? Sure.
Post-pandemic, when the pandemic struck, our last 6 months of the fiscal year, and our fiscal year ends in September, our revenues were down 40%, and that was over $200 million. But we recognize the impact to our airline partners was much more significant, and also the impact to our small business partners, think the concessionaires that work in the airports, was much more significant. So we went into this environment with a very strong balance sheet. Obviously, the CARES Act funding helped us. And what we've been focusing on is how can we help our partners. We have deferred airline payments twice. We did it in the first couple of months, and then we made a choice to defer it again into 2021. And then we also waived the rental payments for all our small businesses, our concessionaires at the airport. That actually, we walked away from $70 million in revenue that we will not recover in that decision. But we felt it was the right decision because they're good business partners. And we have to take a long view on this. And we want our partners to be able to come back when the recovery starts. And we've been fortunate. And I've got to thank American. We're one of the busiest airports in the country, if not the world. And we are that because American is very focused on DFW. And as they've recovered, we've benefited probably more than most of the other airports in their system. So we're taking a long view. We're going to get through this financially. We're going to continue to help our partners because the recovery is going to happen, and we want to make sure everyone is able to participate in that.
Okay. And then regarding DFW, Robert, how do you of course, this is DFW. This is the center of American Airlines. How do you see it going forward? I mean, is this the international hub? And I know that some London flights were cut from a few of the other airports, O'Hare and JFK, and only running out of DFW. Do you see more concentration of your international service out of DFW?
Well, DFW is key to American going forward, and Sean and his team have been just absolutely fantastic partners. Last year, I think it was last year, we did all the mod work on Terminal E, and that was just received wonderfully in terms of getting American's operation up over 900 flights. And we're working right now on some additional gates on Terminal D as well. So, which is the international terminal. So as we take a look forward, DFW is the part of our operation that we've brought back the quickest. It's still far from where it was, but we'll run 600 plus flights over the weekend out of DFW, and we hope to see load factors that are 50, 60 percent or plus. So it's still a driving part of the network today. And as we look to the future, we've rationalized our fleet. We've got 777s and 787s and 320s and 737s. The newest fleet in the industry. It matches up with a fantastic airport, and it's a great launching pad for not just the Sun Belt, but really a vibrant local economy, mixed with a connecting geographic location that I think is really a great fit for the country, short term and the long run. So you'll see us really focus on our relationships with partners and our own organic flights to Asia, to Europe, and to South America as well. DFW is a fantastic hub, and we couldn't be more pleased with the partnership.
Okay, and do you think that international service will permanently or semi-permanently, I don't know how to even put things into the right terms in the pandemic, because who knows when things are going to come back. But I mean, for the coastal hubs, LA, or how do you think about like New York, Boston, and international service from those cities? You think that is going to be much more important kind of longer term than those?
So Leslie, one of the things that we really are doing during this downturn is trying to make sure that we understand how we want to build back, where we're the strongest, and where customer demand and the opportunity for a broad network is most appealing. But then also taking advantage of our relationships with just the world-class flag carrier operations throughout the world. So we have relationships with JAL and BA and Cathay and Qantas. And as things rebound, we're taking a look at how best to utilize all those joint ventures to best serve our network and to make sure that we still have the presence in the places that we most need. As well, I think you've seen that we've taken some really, I think, interesting steps over the last number of months to establish relationships with Alaska Airlines out on the West Coast, and that's going to provide a launching pad for us to do some service to India and to Europe and Asia as well. And so we're taking a look at all of those relationships to best identify how to structure the network as we go forward. But central to that is going to be our big hubs. Charlotte, DFW, really important.
What is your recovery strategy right now to kind of drum up revenue? Airports and which geographies are stronger than others. What's your strategy now?
So Leslie, the immediate strategy is just this. First off, we have to make sure that we can weather the storm. So building up liquidity to get through whatever hits us. American's done a really nice job of working with the government, working with other financial partners to raise as much liquidity as possible. We should end this year with $14.5 billion of cash. That's over double of what we would normally have on hand. We hope that is something that can allow us to get through whatever comes next. So raising cash, conserving cash. We've done a nice job of ensuring that our cash burn is at an absolute minimum. And we've taken really tough steps and aggressive actions, retiring 150 aircraft, getting rid of older fleets, leave programs, early outs, and we've even had to take the unfortunate steps of actually furloughing team members as well. That's all helped. And then the final part is we got to encourage customers to come back when they're ready. And so to the point that we were talking about before, cleanliness is here forever. And we're going to make this an environment where customers want to fly when they can.
Okay. And to your point on furloughs, I mean, is there a scenario were you taking it off the table that you'll have to furlough more than what you have done?
Well, we took super deep cuts. I think as you know, and overall, American was a company of 100,000 or so team members with furloughs, leaves, long-term, short-term, and early outs. We've reduced over 40,000 team members, and we've eliminated 30% of the management team. So, look, I think we've taken quick and aggressive action. And my hope is that, again, with improved testing, diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccinations on the horizon, we got a tough road in front of us in the short run, but demand's going to come back. Right. That is one thing that I know. As quarantines are pulled down, as things open up, people want to travel.
Okay. When do you expect demand overall system to get back to 2019? I know this is the $1 million question, but when do you expect it to get back to 2019 levels? And also your corporate travelers, when do you expect business travel demand? Bill Gates earlier this week said that it's not going to get back to more than 50% maybe of what it was in terms of business travel.
Well, I can't speak to what Mr. Gates has said, but I'll just say this, that the one thing that I think is one of the best indicators of willingness to travel is whether or not restaurants are open in local communities. If restaurants are open, people are willing to fly. Look, as things open back up, there is pent up demand, certainly from a leisure perspective. And Sean, I don't know about you, but in terms of the relationships that we have around the world, there are a lot of folks that I've got to get out and visit, and I'm not a lot different than those people that we serve. I think that there is actually, pent up demand for business travel that, again, when it's safe. And so the best indicators of that and what we hear from our corporate clients is we've got to have vaccinations out there, and they've got to be, fairly widespread. So we're looking to that as a marker for some return to business traffic.
From what you're hearing go ahead.
I would just add, our view from an airport perspective is very similar to Robert's. Clearly pent up demand, and people are traveling right now, and there's been a steady sequential growth month over month, and could we have an interruption in that growth in the next couple of months? Sure, we could. But as I walk the terminals, as I've been traveling, I don't see any drama. I don't see people nervous in the terminals or on the airplanes, and everybody's wearing a mask. The employees in the airports, the crews on the flights are doing a great job, very professional. So there is a core group of people right now who are willing to travel, and we'll be ready to welcome back everybody else when they want to travel. And on the business side, people, there is a spirit to travel, in my opinion. I've been in the industry 35 years. And as much complaints as you hear about traveling sometimes in the past, there is this spirit. And, could I see business travel, a component of it maybe changing permanently? The only component I could see is company internal business travel. Could that be diminished somewhat? Maybe. But for people who have to get out in front of customers, and when companies start to see their competitors traveling and getting in front of customers, I think that's going to be the trigger where the business travel will come back, and we'll be ready, and we will take very good care when the recovery happens, because it is going to happen.
Okay. Do you think it'll fully recover at some point to 2019 levels, even if we don't know when that is, Robert or Sean?
Oh, it's going to recover to 2019 levels. It's who knows on what kind of timing that's required. But look, over the arc of aviation, it's been something that is just it's grown over time. And the one thing I'll say is any technology, like the calls we're on today, and Zoom calls that everybody's going to do, or WebExes, whatever. The more people are connected around the world with technology, the more it is that you actually want personal connections. And so if you take a look at any developments going back to telephones or fax machines or whatever else it is, every one of those developments in the internet has resulted in an increase in travel over the long run. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm optimistic that we'll be there and we'll be ready for it, like Sean said.
Okay. And then we don't have you for too much longer, but I do want to ask you about the MAX and what's your strategy there in getting that back to customers. We have the flight starting on December 29th out of Miami to LaGuardia. Is this going to be a big airplane for your DFW hub eventually? And what are you going to do to get passengers comfortable with it exactly?
Well, thanks for that question. Yesterday was a big day, the ungrounding of the MAX, and right off, Sean, it's probably not going to be in DFW.
I know.
Okay, it's the initial routes, at least for American, will be really just a few flights a day. Starting December 29th, I'll be on that first flight that's going Miami to LaGuardia. I'll have a lot of friends on that flight as well. Look, we've been working incredibly closely with the FAA, all regulators throughout the world, and especially with our pilots union, the APA, and all of our safety experts here. We have gone through fine-tooth comb, as has all the regulators. The MAX has been basically recertified from scratch. Our view is, with all the changes, that look, it ought to be the safest aircraft in the world, and one that when our pilots say it's safe to fly, it's absolutely safe to fly. And I so trust our aviators. So we're excited. We're excited about it. We're busy getting our pilots trained right now. We've gotten our check airmen ready to train those pilots as well and oversee that process. We've got MAX simulators that are ready to go, and our maintenance technicians are working very quickly on all of the airworthiness directives for the changes that have been required for the aircraft. So we're excited about it. We're going to do a lot of break-in flights for the purpose of making sure that we understand just how well it's doing, and you'll hear much more about that in the coming weeks.
And some on-the-ground stuff too, we understand. Some customers are going to come in.
We'll have some stacked displays. These are, we have 24 aircraft that have been, very, very lightly used, 10 more that ought to be delivered before the end of the year, and another 7 coming. So look, in the long run, and this goes to my partner here, Sean, we're going to have 100 of these in our fleet. It's going to be a big part of our fleet. It can really, do things in an efficient way. And I just like to underscore that from a sustainability perspective, the single best thing that airlines can do is to go get new planes. That's how you burn, less fuel and reduce your carbon emissions. Americans the best at that, so we can't wait to get these aircraft in our fleet.
I just want to sneak one reader question in here before I let you guys go. What are you both doing about to keep social distancing at the airport? And I know you mentioned the airport, of course, is less crowded. Flights might be less so, but the gate area, is this, what's American doing and what's DFW doing to make sure that people don't cluster together? Do you break them up?
Well, it is a challenge, honestly. Again, as I walk the terminals, and I do that frequently, the one aspect where I know we're working with American, and I believe every airline is got this challenge, is the boarding call. And the typical customers like to get up and get in line. But even with that, Leslie, I'm seeing customers be more careful. Throughout the airport at DFW, we've created social distancing in all the restaurants and the gate seating areas, and that is working well. And the one area that, again, we just have to collectively keep working on is when that boarding call starts, because it's just natural that customers all want to get up and get ready for the flight. and we'll continue to work on that with our airline partners.
Okay, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both for your time. Sean Donohue, DFW Airport CEO, Robert Isom, President at American Airlines. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
You too, Leslie. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Leslie. Wear your mask.
Thank you. You too.